Hardcore Sonic the Hedgehog fans will probably recognize the name Bean the Dynamite, as he's a playable character in the button-mashing arcade classic Sonic the Fighters. Many will say that this was Bean's only appearance in a Sonic game, and this is true unless you want to count his wanted poster in Sonic Generations. While Bean wasn't in any other Sonic games, he did appear in other Sega games like the Sega Saturn game Fighters Megamix as a playable character. Many people will say that Bean originated from Sonic the Fighters, and this surprisingly is not true. Enter Dynamite Dux, an arcade game released by Sega in 1988, and you guessed it, featuring Bean the Dynamite as one of the main characters. Okay, well technically his name is Ben, and he's blue instead of green in this game, but even still, without Dynamite Dux there would be no Bean the Dynamite, and that would certainly be a crisis in the gaming world. So now you know the origin of Bean the Dynamite, but what about this Dynamite Dux game? Is it any good? Well, let's check it out. The game starts off with a girl named Lucy playing with her weird anthro pets named Ben and Pen, when all of a sudden a creepy, weird thing named Achacha the Great kidnaps Lucy, prompting Ben and Pen to follow through 6 stages of beat-em-up action. The visuals are pretty nice. It has popping bright colors that Sega is pretty well known for, and there's a large variety of interesting and bizarre enemy designs. The music is very catchy, being composed by Hiroshi Kawaguchi, also known for his work on Fantasy Zone and Space Harrier. The tracks give off a vibe that you're indeed playing a very unusual game. It was pretty standard for Sega's games to have great presentation, and Dynamite Dux is no different in that regard. The gameplay, unfortunately, is not up to par. As I've said before, it's a beat-em-up, but it doesn't necessarily play by the typical rules of a beat-em-up, as you don't have to defeat every enemy on screen to progress. You just have to try to get to the end of the stage and beat the stage boss, and with the exception of the final stage, each stage contains a mid-boss as well. In addition to the game's 6 stages, there are 2 bonus stages where Ben and Pen duke it out in a boxing ring for bonus points. It's a basic 2-button game where one button jumps and the other attacks. You can also find weapons like bombs and rocket launchers that can be used against your enemies. For a game of its time, it certainly has enough variety, but where I feel it falls short is the movement. Your character moves very slowly, which a lot of the time will make it nearly impossible to react to enemy attacks and projectiles. It seems like it was intentionally designed this way, as forward progression actually rewards you points. And seeing as it's an arcade game, I'm sure they wanted to make it this unfairly difficult, so that players would have to insert multiple quarters if they wanted to actually beat the game. So while this design is understandable for its time, it's still pretty annoying and really can suck a lot of enjoyment out of the game. I feel like maybe if they had added a dash button or something it would have helped, but it may have made the game too easy, which would obviously not be in their best interests. I suppose they didn't think that players would actually have enough quarters at once to finish the game because, well, just take a look at the ending yourself. Yikes. There's no music, no credits, it just goes back to the game's title screen. It's overall a mediocre game with fantastic presentation but annoyingly clunky gameplay. It did receive a few home ports, but they are all incredibly obscure and expensive to find. If you're interested in playing this Dynamite dud, then your best bet is to play it through MAME. You can easily beat this game in about 30 minutes, so at the end of the day it's a pretty harmless game. This is just one of those weird Sega games that no one tends to bring up, and after playing it myself, I can kinda see why. As always guys, I've been FumeiCom, and I'll see you folks at the same time, same place, different game.